Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
We are back with Cherry Home Designs. Excited to have our friends back here after Thanksgiving to talk, of course, more about the amazing work they're doing and all the collaboration process, interiors, exteriors. I can't do the introduction. Christine, you're better at that. How are you guys doing today?
Good, Jill. It's good to see you. I hope you had a great time in Nashville.
We did, and then my son got very sick with an ear infection. We came home early, and then I got the ear infection. So yeah, but we're good. We did have a great time though overall. Thank you. And how was your holiday?
It was wonderful.
Really nice.
It's been really nice. We cooked, so that's always fun.
Oh, wonderful. Good. Well, would you mind introducing yourself to our listeners today? Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm Christine from Cherry Home Designs, and I'm an interior designer and furniture artist. And this is my husband.
Yeah.
Hi again, John.
How are you, Jill?
Good, thank you.
John Pizzi with the Unique Concepts Builders Group. And
So-
we're partnered up together.
Yeah,
Awesome.
we work together to help our clients live their story. So that's the whole premise behind our business.
Beautiful. And what is your website where we can find out more information?
Yeah, it's cherryhomedesigns.com, or you can follow us on social at Cherry Home Designs with an S.
Perfect. And exciting to learn last time. I know you weren't here. Your uncle was, right?
Yeah.
Who's awesome. Got to know more about the family business and what you all do to renovate these beautiful homes to rent out. Oh my goodness. Wait, did you actually have Thanksgiving at one of those houses?
No, we
No,
actually
no?
had guests at one of the houses for Thanksgiving.
Good.
So
Yeah.
that actually was a bit of not the best guest we've ever had. So yeah, it was actually one of the worst experiences, but it's all good. Nothing permanent, nothing crazy. But
All right.
so yeah, no, we were here in Westfield where we live, and we hosted about 10 people. So it was fun.
Beautiful. Well, I'm
Yeah.
glad the houses are doing well. Now, today we're talking in regards to, is this the top 10 design?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Reno tips. Awesome. Reno tips?
Renovation tips.
Reno tips.
Reno tip.
Yeah.
I have a friend named Reno who texted me yesterday. So you just hit me there. I'm like, is that a typo? Like Remo, like remodeling. Yes, renovation. I got it. But you put the short term. I'm so sorry about that. So we're going to
No
talk
worries.
about tips today because, a lot of people do want to start redesigning. Here's the holidays. This is the time. And again, it's like getting started because spring is right around the corner. And let me ask you about this. Remodeling, redesigning, clearly it's your specialty, and the two of you working together. How would you say, people should start off? What's the first thing about thinking about a renovation? What are the process and the plans? And do you have to have the investment in order, the money there? Like, give us the
Correct.
breakdown.
Yeah, I mean, I think starting a renovation first starts with the idea of function, right? Like, what do you want to do in terms of the home that you're in? Do you want a flow change? Do you want a design change? Do you want a structural change?
Mhm.
So when you answer those questions, that really sort of indicates where you start, right? So
Okay.
it starts with vision and what you need for your life. Sometimes a redesign happens because you have a life change, like you're getting married or you're getting divorced, or your kids leaving for college. Like there's so many reasons that are life inspired that come down to what really sort of sparks the idea for a renovation. Or your decor is 20 years old and you're in need of a refresh, right? Like, so that's a lot of what sparks clients. And usually it starts with vision and then budget, right? So what's a reasonable budget that you're working with? And John and I always recommend that if you're doing structural changes, anything where you're tearing down walls or going inside walls, start with a budget, add 10 to 20%, because there's X factors that we don't know that come into play with that. Is there anything you want to add, John?
No, that was it. I think the biggest thing is budget. Everybody should work within their means,
Mhm.
come up with a budget. And if you give that information over to a contractor, he could say, okay, well, this is what I could do for that amount of money. If
Mhm.
you're willing to spend a little bit extra, we could do this. So it allows the contractor, the designer, to at least focus on that budget and say, okay, this are the parameters we need to stay within.
Yeah.
And this is what we could do for that.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, I know, don't just be handing over your budget ideas to any contractor. We talked about the plan of finding
Right.
someone who's trustworthy, who's good, who's clearly you can work with and you
Absolutely.
trust.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, good. Because then they got to be like, oh, well, I can do this. And someone you trust, got to already have those meetings ahead
Absolutely.
and a plans.
Yeah, and a big consideration, Jill, to that point is, return on value. That's one of our
Yes.
first and number one tips for people to think about return on value, right? When you're deciding to open up a wall, change your flow, change your structure, what is going to bring the most value based on what people look for in the resale process? So even if this is your forever home, at some point it's going to be sold, right? So if you pick lime green kitchen cabinets, that's a very custom choice.
Look.
By the way,
Right.
funky, love it. Like, go for it if it makes you happy.
May not work for others.
But it may not work for others. So
Yeah, it might scare people from buying it in the future.
Yeah,
Like first
exactly.
picture they see, swipe. Yep.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
It's almost like dating. You swipe left on that one.
Yes,
You know what I
yes,
mean?
yes. I've heard about those apps. Yep. Mhm.
So we really try to help clients and guide them that, while you're making custom choices for you and your style and your life, really consider the impact to your return on value. Anything you do to bathrooms and kitchens, check, check, check. You're adding value to your home 100%. But spending, let's say, $10,000 on a leather couch may not be the best investment, because there's really not much that's going to get value back to you, because you're taking that with you, right? So
Mhm.
sort of push your budget toward the things that will give you money back, give you ROI.
Got it.
And
Perfect.
Christine's point, top three, definitely kitchens, bathrooms, exterior will be number three,
Curb appeal.
believe it or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basement, finishing a basement, it adds square footage, but it does not give you a massive return on value.
Mhm.
Okay.
Interesting.
People think that, but a lot of people don't want to be in a basement. You understand? If somebody else,
Is that where your main living?
that's not your main living
space?
area.
Yeah.
Well, last year, look, I moved into a home that had a basement and it was finished. It was just brand new carpets down there. They did nothing else, right? And then I decided to put in a kitchen, a bathroom, all illegally. Didn't realize, like, I'm a new homeowner and people are like, oh, you don't have to do that. You'll get permits later. Long story short, I ended up
Right.
getting permits because someone reported me. So secrets out of the bag, but I did
Yeah.
it in reverse order, which sometimes people do. I did it to rush
Yeah.
for my father, who needed a heart transplant, who was supposed to live with me, who decided the basement's too big for me. Long story short, I had half carpet down there, and then I got some porcelain tile. I got the cement poured in the foyer of the bathroom up to the kitchen. And then last year, I'm like, you know what? I'm like, it just half carpet. I decided to invest and put the rest of that cement down, hire the same guy who did it, and put all porcelain floor down. He said that'd be better for my return on value. Is that true?
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
better than
Nice
carpet.
porcelain, like, the long
Absolutely.
planks, whatever, but
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
carpet. So, all right. So, okay, good. I
And
didn't
also,
lose too
what
much.
you did was smart. You added a kitchen.
You added a kitchen.
And you added
and
a bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
So that basement now becomes additional living space, a mother-daughter. Now you're talking multifamily.
That's different.
So that is different than just
Correct.
finishing a space, but you're adding things that, make it a wider pool of people that would be interested
Yeah.
in that, right? You're
Sure.
giving more
Interesting.
purpose.
Right.
So
More
that
purpose.
is,
Okay.
that would be the only caveat to the basement thing that John mentioned.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
If
Interesting.
you're just going to finish the four walls and just throw down some flooring, it's not going to bring you in return. But what you did with the second kitchens are actually huge right now,
Yeah.
especially for a lot of,
Multi-generational families.
yeah, multi-generational.
Yeah,
families.
I feel like everyone's living together. That's the way I would love that. That's so cool. My
And
sister
better
lives
than
with my
carpet.
father now, but better than carpet. I can't stand
That way
carpet.
better.
Well,
I
and
can't.
for a basement, if you get any water, your carpet is ruined.
That's
You
it. And
know?
people, the cheap route would have been, hey, put vinyl down there in your basement or whatever you call that cheap stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, no, he's like, do it the right way, pour it
Right.
and do it that way. Okay. Thank you for your help with that.
Your dad's okay, Jill. I heard
He's,
that.
yeah, oh, yep. Look, quick story. And 5 years ago, my mom passed away from lung cancer. 6 months after she died, he went to heart failure. And now I moved into this house by myself with a baby, a 2-month-old and a 2-year-old. And now I have him with me and I'm taking care of him. And then I'm like, how are you ever going to go home? I'm like, I don't want you in my space though. So I'm like, let's do the basement for you. And then you can like give me rent money. It'll be great. And then all of a sudden it was done. And he's like, it's too big. And then on top of it all, he denied 3 heart transplants. He got 3 heart transplants, denied them all. He's still alive today. He moved home. My sister and her family moved in with him in my childhood home. And he's like a 9 life type of man. He never got the heart and he doesn't regret it, but he's alive and well. Thank you for asking. But they brought up the fact of multi-generational family because now they're living in an old house that was born. I was in the 70s. So like it needs remodeling and updating. And now that's something they have to start working on. They need to start doing that now or else things are going downhill over there.
Yeah. I mean, merging, a family like that, with all the
Mhm.
different needs, especially let's say health needs. You might need a
A
handicap.
handicap thing, the
Handle.
bar had to go in. Yeah. No
So-
staircase thing. Yeah, but he's gonna need, he can't do those steps anymore, those chair lift things. I mean, yeah, these are all things.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And that gets to our second tip, which is
Oh, yeah, everyone in the home matters.
Matter.
The old folk, even the little
Yeah.
pets, everyone.
Yep.
Yep.
The young kids, your
Mhm.
pets, so much of that when we're doing an interview with a client is we ask about who's in the house,
Right.
who will be in the house. So let's say, for instance, I just worked with a client, she's in an apartment in Manhattan. She's got a beautiful 2-bedroom, very large square footage. And she goes, right now I'm using my guest room as a guest room and partial office, but I'm going to want to transition it eventually to a nursery. So this is so much good information for me. So now I'm giving her options of a dresser that's convertible to a changing table. Right. And I'm giving her options for decor that could easily transition to a nursery and not feel like right now too childish and be a sophisticated look, but then easily transition through some easy changes with colors and, just lamps or blankets or pictures that could eventually just really welcome a baby in the space. So that is, to me, one of the most important things is understanding the personalities of everyone in the house. What do they, how do they want it? Where do they live together? Where do they want private space? What are their design sensibilities? Because it all matters. And I feel like when you're merging lives or you're adding lives to it, you're adding stories, and that has to be considered in how you live, the flow of your home, and then all of your design choices.
Very good point to bring up. Yeah.
And if we had to move to the cheap isn't always best tip, that's another really
Right.
big, important thing for people to know. John and I, when we've done renovations, have always done 3 estimates. The rule of 3 is what we would call it, because what you're trying to see is, first off, who you click with. Because remember, we talked about last time, the chemistry between your designer and your contractor and your family matters. That's going to make a long, arduous process pleasant or horrific, right? And that trust is a big thing because you're putting your home in someone else's hands.
Yeah.
And that's not a small decision, especially with a big investment. That's not a small thing, right? Like we take that super seriously. And it really matters to us that people feel confident and comfortable throughout the process, right? Communication is critical. Transparency is critical with budget. And then someone who's willing to walk you through the process step by step. It doesn't make you feel inferior because you don't understand our language in the construction and design business, right? Like that we're able to explain. We also know that a lot of people can't visualize. So we try to help them do that as well. So that is really important. But the cheap isn't always best. Typically, when I've made decisions, and John, correct me if I'm wrong from what you feel like, you get the 3 estimates. I usually choose the middle one because that usually is the most fair. I'm not going to go for the cheapest, clearly not going to go for the most expensive. You try to go toward the middle pitch, especially if you really like the contractor or you like the designer.
Do you also, though, sometimes have contractors say, hey, look, I know you're getting other estimates. If there's something that you want to talk about, maybe we could, I think that sounds like a good contractor. There's something, let's compare, and maybe we can work on something and I'll tell you why he wrote this and that. And we can, because if he really wants the job and he's really the best guy for the job, I think would be willing to work with you, even though he came in too high.
I think what the client needs to do is to have the 3 estimates in order to determine which one is the best for them, is to know what the inclusions are and what the exclusions are on a project. Not everybody lists that. When I write a proposal, this is what's in, this is what I have to the side here that's not included. If you want to throw it in, I can give you a number for this. So without knowing that, you're always comparing apples to oranges. So in order to level the playing field with the 3 bids, you need to know each contractor's inclusions and exclusions.
And do a side by side.
And do a side by side.
And John and I were talking yesterday about insurance and how important it is to ask for a certificate of insurance from your contractors, because that shows that they're investing in their business to make sure that, God forbid anything happens, they're covered. So we talked about getting $1 million policy at minimum. And if you but most contractors have the bare minimum of $250,000. If you're doing a big project, that's not necessarily going to cover in case of anything,
For my business, I carry 1 million, 2 million,
I'm sure.
So,
yeah.
I'm there, protects me, it protects the client, and you know what? You pay a little bit more for it right now, but it's, overall, it's the better way to go.
Okay.
If you get a contractor that's not insured, and God forbid if anything happens to your home, you want to talk about a nightmare? That's a nightmare.
And licensed.
And licensed.
No, let's not forget that licensed.
I mean,
and
are you expected to ask, are you licensed? And they say, yeah, or should they provide it to you? Or
Yeah.
what kind of
Okay.
number is it? A DS?
A DCA in New Jersey, it's called, it's under the Division of Community Affairs.
okay.
So you just apply for that. They want to see that you have the minimum insurance,
Okay.
which they require $500,000. The state only requires $500,000. So
Mhm.
you have to provide all your documentation that you're registered with the federal government and so on and so
Okay.
forth. And they won't issue it to anybody, but you have that DCA number.
Okay, good.
That's a great thing to have. in New
Good
Jersey.
point. All right. So we're talking
And that certificate, if the contractor is a registered contractor, then he should easily make a copy for you.
okay, good. Rule of 10%. And I'm excited to talk about the gray being over. I'm shocked.
Yeah.
But, okay, hold on.
That
So
was-
that's a tease. That's a tease. Let's start. What is the
So-
rule of 10%?
So in construction, Christine will handle the design part of it.
Okay.
Under construction, listen, any really good contractor can put up a home, can build a main structure.
Okay.
The last 10%, which are mostly the finishes, the trim work, the painting, the tile, and all that. It doesn't matter how well you've built a home.
Mm-hmm.
If your finishes are not, I call it tight,
Okay.
they're crisp, clean, and done properly. You walk in and no matter what you did to the home, doesn't matter because that's what everybody sees at the end.
Mhm.
You're not going to see the framing. You don't see it because it's behind sheetrock. You want to
Mhm.
see that the painting is done correctly. I mean, we had some painting done at the Wildwood home and the cutting, you know what that is when they're cutting along the ceilings.
Ah,
We wound up getting paint on the ceiling the whole way.
Yeah.
It
ah.
looks horrible. It's not a clean transition between the two. And it really looks horrible.
And what's interesting is like 90% of your budget is what you don't see.
Right.
10% of your budget,
Right.
10% of your budget is 100% of what you see.
Right.
So that's why John is saying, like, it's really interesting, like when you're opening up walls and you're doing framing and you're, reorganizing things and running plumbing or running electric or anything like that. That's all of what you don't see. That's 90% of your budget goes to what you don't see in most cases. But 10% that where the rest of the budget goes on these finishing areas is what everybody sees. So it's just a fascinating aspect to consider when you're going into considering any major construction or any major renovation.
Thank
And
you.
the design rule, the 60-30-10 is actually like, web design and, print design. But 60%, what you're trying to do is pick your base color. And usually it's a neutral. It could be a dark neutral or light neutral. And then you get your 30%, which is like, a little bit more of like your filler color, and then your 10% of your accent color. So it's really important. It doesn't mean that you can't add more.
Okay.
But when you're choosing a color palette for your home, it's
Yeah.
really important to think about that. This is where design goes crazy. This is where people like go off the rails with design, where they just don't think about color combinations and finding complementary tones. And that's where I think, color consultation is actually one of the biggest things I do when it comes to furniture or it comes to interior design.
Okay. Good to
So
know.
it's really an interesting process. Like you can choose a blue that is tonally more cool or tonally more warm. And so these are important decisions when you're choosing other colors to go with it. So the color palette, try to choose your 3 main colors, and then you could throw in, metallics into that. You could throw patterns into that, textures into that. So it really does give you a good starting point whenever you're considering redesigning a room. Go to what's your neutral, what's your 30%, which is the second most important color, and then your pop of color.
All right. So you say those gray days are over. I just did the basement mostly in Edgecombe gray, if you know, but then like, I think it's Benjamin Moore. I don't know paints, but the guy at the store was showing me, these are the complementary ones that go with it if you're going to do accent walls. And I did. So again, I don't know, warm, cool tone, whatever, but it looks good. There's some accent walls, but that's okay. Yeah. You need to talk to someone because I knew nothing about that. Hence, most of your homeowners are like me, like, what? cool tone warm, and they gave me another sheet that actually kind of matched it. These are the ones you should be going with this. So I was like, oh, thanks for that. That saved
Right,
me some headache there.
Yeah, I mean, and it's again like the gray days are over. I don't think that they're over. Let me just clarify. They're over for me. I don't know if they're over for everybody yet. But the 50 shades of gray, look, gray is a great neutral. So when you're thinking about that 60-30-10 rule, right? It's great. But what I've seen in a lot of homes is literally your 60-30-10 is all gray. It's just a light gray, a dark gray, and a medium gray. And what that does is that it makes it like, I love monochromatic design. It can be quite beautiful, but it becomes a little prison looking at some point, you know what I mean? And adding in a little bit of color, it looks flat and it feels, it's not welcoming, or, you know, it doesn't feel like a design space, in my opinion. So to me, and it's cold. Gray is a little bit of a cold color. So if you remember when we were growing up, Jill, like 70s and 80s, it was all brown. Beige,
yeah.
Right. So gray has replaced that. And a lot of builders use gray because it is the most appealing, again, return on your value. Like it's a blank slate, right? It's a blank canvas for people to sort of bring in their furnishings, and it makes it a better resale opportunity. But I would say when you're designing something for a personal home, really try to push yourself outside those lines, and think about that 60-30-10 rule. So that even if you're choosing gray as your neutral, bring in other colors that really sort of balance that and make it a friendlier environment, because that's, your home should feel fun and welcoming and warm, right? Like you want it to feel like a warm hug. That's my theory on how a home should feel. You would want to feel enveloped. You want to feel wrapped in it, right? Now, granted, there are some, and that's for the majority of people. Like there have been people that have these massive mansions, and that could work in that environment, right? You want it to look like a museum. Great.
Yeah.
If that's what you're going for, go for it.
Yeah.
The majority of people with families, that's not the look they're going for. You know, they want people to feel it's personal, it's welcoming, it's comfortable. And so there's a lot of ways to do that, even with the grays. But I definitely do recommend try to push yourself outside those lines.
Got it. All right. We just moving along to designing with purpose. Do you want to talk about that a little more? We touch upon everything, but yeah, designing with purpose, right?
Yeah, designing with purpose. And John, actually, since this section is all me, he's gonna pop off right now.
I actually have a business call I have to get on at 10:30, but
no problem. Yeah, we're gonna still talk a few more minutes. All right. Thank you so much, John.
Absolutely. Take care. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
So designing with purpose and future needs is kind of what I was getting to before, Jill, where you're thinking about, okay,
generational family.
Generational family. Are you in need of a home office? You know, are you in need of a studio space because you're an artist? Like so many people are meshing their work life and their personal and professional lives within their home. Their home has multiple purposes, right? Do you love to entertain? Do you host big holiday dinners? Right. So these are all the considerations. And again, that idea of, okay, right now we're using this room as a guest room and an office, but we're going to want to use it as a nursery, or my parent is moving in with me. So thinking through every room of your house holistically and what purpose each serves. And I say that because I don't like to consider just doing design gratuitously. It needs to have a purpose in mind. It needs to serve the family's needs. If you need a playroom for your kids because you don't want all the toys in the living room, right? There are so many ways to build a environment that works for every single member of your family that is currently living in the house and future living in the house. So that's a real process, a psychological process. It's an interview process. And I really love to understand all of those details before making any design recommendations, you know, and that goes to like your life story as inspiration. I love to unpack with my clients, like, where do they love to travel? What kind of music do they like? What are their hobbies? Who's their icon in fashion, right? So one of the best compliments I ever got walking, you know, when people walk into my house is like, Chris, it looks like your wardrobe. It looks like I could go in your closet and like, this is what your clothes look like. So it really does reflect who you are holistically. So that like bringing those things, those personal aspects, like that painting behind me is a sound wave.
I'm looking at that. Are you into music?
Right?
Is that, or like?
I'm totally into music. And in my living room have a wall of vinyl albums of the albums that
Oh,
changed my life. But as art, it's a gallery wall of albums.
beautiful. Beautiful.
That's a sound wave I got made of a song because my daughter was born on the 21st of September. It's the Earth, Wind, and Fire song as a sound
Oh,
wave.
a sound wave. That's so
Right?
creative.
But it's like
Yeah.
a beautiful piece of art, right?
Mhm.
And it's really special to me because it means something. And when people ask, what is this about? It
It's-
helps you get to know them.
Yeah. It's a
Right?
great conversational piece. Can I just ask you a quick question right behind you? What type of, is that wallpaper on your wall or is that like that gray? What is that? Spark like
So it's a white wall.
on the other side? No, right behind you, the dark part.
Oh
behind
yeah,
your
this is
chair.
crystal wallpaper. So I
That's
did
so
it,
cool. I always see
right?
that. Yeah.
So I did an all black dining room. I'm
Awesome.
in an all black dining room right now.
Awesome.
And everyone thought I was crazy. I did this like 5.5 years ago. So the idea behind this is that light sources, that actually gets into my lighting thing. I have a window and 4 openings. This dining room is the center of my home. And
Mhm.
I just wanted something to feel that it enveloped you. I wanted it
Yeah.
to feel, inviting and comfortable and a little romantic. So
Beautiful.
I made the entire dining room black and everyone thought I was crazy. And it is absolutely everyone who walks into my house,
Everyone's favorite room.
space. You had Jill, the conversation like, Christine, you're crazy. But another reason was because this wallpaper is crystal, it reflects light. So it doesn't
I
feel
see.
black,
Uh-huh.
right? It feels warm, actually. Black can be warm, like whites and grays,
Yeah.
and all colors have that range of warm and cool. So that's, I love it. And this is where I was like, okay, this room will have the best conversations. This is where stories are going to be shared. This is where memories are going to be made. And it's the center of my home. And I wanted it to be a statement. So
Yeah.
that is why I went all black.
Beautiful. Well, we only have a minute left in the show. You just mentioned quickly about light. So you have a lot of light. I know Let There Be Light was one of the topics. There's a lot of light in that room as well. It's
Oh,
not
yeah.
just a dark room. You have all these windows.
So,
And how important is light in a house?
oh my God. I don't know about you, but I
I
grew up in
agree.
a very dark house. So,
So dark. I go to my sister, my dad lives, and it's so dark. I even try to push things. It's dark. It's dark. I'm so light and bright. I like everything white.
and so many of us who grew up in that time have that same reaction to light. So
Yeah.
I consider natural light, the type of light, and how much light in
Okay.
every design choice. So lighting design is very much part of the process,
Mhm.
and how to either add light, because some people are limited if they're living in an apartment and they're
True.
not able to add, how do you bring in light if you're using it for putting on makeup? Like, all of these different considerations,
Good.
in a nursery is going to be different than light in a master bedroom, right? You want a little more romantic lighting in your
Mhm.
bedroom, right?
Yeah.
Or you need a night light in your kitchen.
Complementary lighting, let's call it.
Exactly right. So that all sort of plays a role in the design of anything that I do. Light is one of the
Alright.
biggest conversations that we have with our clients.
And we could talk more about that next time if that's okay
Yeah,
with you, and finish our
absolutely.
list. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Christine, would you mind
you.
sharing how we can reach out to you?
Absolutely. You can reach me at cherryhomedesigns.com. You can follow me on social at Cherry Home Designs, or just give me a call at 347-432-8103.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic day, and we'll talk next week. Can't wait.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Have a great weekend, Jill.
You
Bye.
too. Bye-bye, hon.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down,
It's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.